Hi everyone, welcome. So, a few of you may know that I've entered the Old Ghost Road Ultra Marathon, which is in February, which basically consists of 85 kilometers of running with about 2,700 meters of vertical, most of which happens in the back half of the run, which sounds quite daunting for want of a better term. So, this is just some coaches' thoughts or how I think as a coach, and not that I'm doing much coaching at the moment because I'm just way too busy with Trink in life. But I just thought I would share some thoughts, and it just might be helpful if you're thinking, how I build for a race. And when I do an Ironman build, I do an 18-week build, and I'm going to use that strategy and template for this build. So I've just completed week one. So how the build works is it's like this. I do 18 weeks, and I do 3 times 4 weeks on, 1 week off, and then at the end of that last week off, I do 2 weeks hard and then 1 week taper. So, and there's a reason behind that, and part of doing 4 weeks on, 1 week off, it gives me a little bit more consistency. The other advantage of doing 4 weeks on is I can actually break that 4 weeks into 2 2-week cycles. And like when I'm coaching somebody for an Ironman, or when I've done an Ironman, what it does is I can break that 4 weeks into 2 2-week cycles where I juggle things around so that rather than trying to cram everything into a week, it's just depending on lifestyle of people and people's jobs and things like that. It just gives me a bit more flexibility. In the case of this ultra marathon, it might be the case of that 4 weeks might be first week of training, harder week, drop back a week, harder week again. So it'll be kind of like that kind of progression where we go up, drop back, go up, drop back, recovery, you know what I mean? So it's a case of, I think it might give me a bit of flexibility just for managing the body, because the reality is that the fundamental thing, running is so much more high impact when you're just running than, for example, triathlon training where you are swimming and biking and running. In an Ironman build, I probably peak out at about 60 Ks of running a week. It would probably be very rare that I would go above that. Whereas for this race, I'm probably going to have to get above 100 kilometers of running a week, which just sounds terrifying, if I'm honest. So that's the advantage of that 4 week block. What I generally do in my recovery week, if I'm doing an Ironman, I do some testing. For this, I just think it'll be about recovery. And the problem with testing with running is that the risk of injury becomes quite high if you're trying to push pace. So I'm still working on a strategy for that, and I think it just might be a case of just dropping down the volume, booking a massage, and just looking after the body. And then that last month of training where I have an easy week, 2 weeks hard, 1 week taper, what that does is it gives me essentially 2 easy weeks in that last month. So it actually helps my body recover. And I used it for my last Ironman build, and it just works really, really well. And it's possibly an age thing as well, could be, but I definitely find it just helps me rest, recuperate. There's still some quality in that mid 2 week block, and it seems to be, for me over the years, it's something that I've evolved that just works, and I'm going to apply it for this ultra marathon. It'll be interesting to see how it works. Like I've done a bit of looking into different training plans, and there's all sorts of schools of thought, and I think this is just, it's going to be a case of, well, I know this works in this instance, and I think I should apply it with a little bit of flexibility, and it should be sweet. So that's how the plan works. And this is the end of week one. I'm feeling not too bad considering that I'm slowly building, but it's easy to feel good after the first week of training. Once we get deep into it, it might be a bit different. So, and it's interesting, like the build up has been a bit of a mixed bag. Training was going really, really well up until the end of July. And in all honesty, I was kind of starting from ground zero at the start of the year, just building back into it. I've had kind of 2 years where I haven't really done much because I've been focusing on my clothing brand. And it's one of those things where I needed a goal to motivate me. So, and this is it. And it's, oh my God, what have I done kind of moment. But I'm super excited. It's going to be so different. So training was going really well to the end of July, and then August, September was a case of having a niggly injury and getting that cold coughing bug twice. I kind of got it, had a week off work, and then I had the cough for another week where I couldn't run, eased back into running, and then I got another bout of it again. And so it was it was just a bit of a write-off. And then the last few weeks have just been slowly building to then get ready for this first week of training. And so to give you an insight of what my weeks are going to look like, I try and keep it as consistent as possible. And what will progress is some of the distance will progress and then where I'm running. So at the moment, my week looks like this. Monday, at this stage, I do a 30-minute ride home, which is about 11-12 Ks. At the end of this block of training, that's going to change to a run home. So it'll be about 11-12 K run on a Monday. But at this stage, it's just active recovery on the bike. And then it'll become a run because just to get that run volume up. Tuesday at the moment, I do a treadmill session and then I go do 10 minutes on the stepper and then I do my gym and weights. Wednesday is going to, at this stage, I'm up to 15 kilometers in the forest, which is basically just there. That will progress to this block to 20 kilometers, and then that will become 20 kilometers in the hills. I'll head over and run in the hills to get more vertical because it's important that I get vertical for this race. Thursday, God, it's tiring just listing it out, isn't it? Thursday, I do an interval session on the treadmill, and I do 25 minutes where I do 5-minute warm up, and then I do 4 minutes on, 1 minute off. So that's essentially like doing 1K reps, depending on how fast you run, or it could be 800 meters depending on how fast you run. But I do 4 minutes on, 1 minute off, and then at the end of the 25 minutes, I jump straight onto the stepper. I do 10 minutes on the stepper, and then I jump straight back onto the treadmill, and then I do a build to sort of like a tempo pace, and that's 15 minutes. So that gives me a 45-minute session. The initial theory behind doing the run stepper run session was the old Ghost Road has a section where you go up some stairs. Now I've been led to believe the stairs are no longer. There's now a mountain bike route that there's been a pathway put in to avoid the stairs. Last year's race, it looked like going up the stairs were optional. You could run the stairs or do the loop. I think the stairs were potentially harder but quicker trade-off. My understanding at this point in time is that the stairs are going to be no longer. So I still think that run stepper run session is probably still beneficial as a way to just get a steep climb in a run and then go back to running. Because the reality is a lot of this ultramarathon stuff, there's quite a lot of walking that happens, and it's okay to walk. That is the key thing. It's like walking's not failure. Walking's actually, if it's too steep, you're saving your legs for when you can actually run properly. So that's Thursday, and then I go and do my weight session again. So I do 2 weight sessions a week at this stage, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Friday I swim. That's part active recovery, and I do a little bit of intensity in that swim. It's also partly because I'm doing a team and doing the swim in a team for the Oxman. I've been asked to do the swim, and I haven't been swimming, so I've got to get some swim mojo happening. Saturday's long run in the hills. At this stage, it's Saturday this week was 22 Ks. That will get up to 30 to 35 Ks. By the end of this block, it'll be 30. Longest will probably be 35 Ks. Once you get beyond that, it becomes a game of diminishing returns based on recovery and fatigue. And then Sunday is a swim in the morning. And that's just an easy loosened swim. This morning when I swam, my legs were pretty train wrecked, and actually my shoulders as well from running with a pack and all of that stuff. and then an easy run today. So today's run was 7Ks. Ultimately, that run over the next 2 blocks of training will build up to a 20K run. So Saturday will be like a 35K run followed by a 20K run the next day. And then the plan is at the end of block 2 of training, I'd quite like to do a run where I do 50 to 55K run. I'm thinking of running the Paparoa Trail. I just need to look at the logistics because it's right before Christmas. So the timing from that point of view is a nightmare, but that would be a good hit out over similar sort of terrain. So that's kind of the overview of how the weeks are looking. And basically at this stage, it's just a case of just building up all the other runs to where I want them to be and focusing on running well, but don't need to focus on running fast. And it's about time on feet, not pace per kilometre. So that's where we're kind of at. It's one of those things where it's going to be a complete new journey for me, and it's been fun. It's like running in Bolt Lake Forest with a head torch, because the first hour of the race is in the dark. So I was in the forest practicing running with the head torch, which is kind of fun. It's kind of eerie but not scary, if that makes sense, in the sense that you've just got pitch black. Early morning, there's generally not a sound in there. Sometimes you hear the ocean depending on tides, but otherwise it can be deathly quiet. And there's just this pool of light, the sound of your breathing, and the sound of your footsteps. Like, I don't listen to music when I run. Generally, you can't have it when you race. But also, and I know that might sound odd, but also for me, it's like time where I have kind of silence in my head. You know, I think in society now we get so much noise that for me, running is just nice to just have not being blasted by noise. And so it's a case of, that was really cool fun. So this is where we're at. And what I'll do is I'll do an update at the end of this 4-week block of training, just to sort of see how we're going and sort of share my thoughts on how this plan that I'm implementing is working, and whether it's something as a strategy going forward, that if you're planning on doing something like this, or if you're planning on an Ironman, I know this strategy works. If you're watching this and planning on doing an ultramarathon, for me it's a case of I'm not sure, but let's see what happens. And that's enough for me. Speak to you later. Bye bye.